everybody to the penultimate show, show 84, Coffee at 11 show. Myself and Colm have switched roles today because he has agreed on demand to be in the hot seat. So I have taken over the reins for today. So on the penultimate show, brought to you by WIG-WAM.ie SME Peer Support. Good morning, Colm. Show us your coffee mug.
And a very good morning, one and all. And Katrina, thanks very much indeed for agreeing to swap seats today. We're very excited about today. A bit nervous, but very excited. So, sláinte everybody.
No need to be nervous. You're in very safe hands, not just with myself, but with everybody here. We all have your back. We all have your back, and you know that. So, I am going to give you a little bit of what Colm told me about himself, most of which I knew, some of which I didn't. So, as we all know, name is Colm O'Brien. Business name, there's a few here, so Colm O'Brien Motivation, WIG-WAM.ie and Carambola. What does your business do? Colm O'Brien Motivation is professional speaking, WIG-WAM.ie peer support groups, and Carambola 5-star school lunches. How long is your business established? Colm O'Brien Motivation since 2016, WIG-WAM.ie since 2019, and Carambola since 2003. How many employees? 2 in Colm O'Brien Motivation. I think we all know who they are now. 2 in WIG-WAM.ie and in Carambola 120. And then the introduction that he gave me. He wanted to be a school teacher because of the short hours and long holidays, but as usual, the universe had very different plans and thrust him into hospitality, practically the polar opposite, long hours, short holidays. There he enjoyed a 20-year corporate career. Highlight included a stint as general manager of the world famous Bewley's Cafe on Grafton Street in Dublin. And he was instrumental in starting Bewley's Cafe Theatre during his tenure there. Then he became the franchise manager for Bewley's Cafe brand and took over his own franchise in Limerick in 1998. And many of us have very fond memories of Bewley's there. That consequently failed in 2003 following what he has described to me as a perfect storm, and I'm sure he's going to go into that here, and it then closed in 2005. As a result, though, Carambola was born out of that adversity and it reached sales of 10 million in 2019. When Colm turned 50 in 2013, he wrote Feeding Johnny, which brought many of us to him. And this led to Colm O'Brien Motivation being born. That was launched in 2016. That led to Coffee with Colm and led to the Coffee at 11 show that we all enjoy today. And something nobody knows about you, and I definitely didn't know about this. He jumped out of a plane twice at 10,000 feet, and the second time, the chute failed. But there must be a story there because you're here to tell it. So I'm curious, and I'm sure you're going to tell it that in a while. But first, I'd like you to take us back to the actual capital and your early days. Tell us about your years in Dublin.
I love it, I love it, I love it. Thanks indeed for that, Kat. And listen, folks, thanks all for being here. And I have to pay particular homage to Eamon Smith there for handling that situation beautifully and brilliantly. And that lovely grounding statement brought us back into the room. Hats off, props, man. It's wonderful, wonderful. Blessed with great people, as you can see. But all of you included, so thank you all for being here. And Katrina, thanks for stepping into the breach today. Okay, so take you right back. Mum and Dad are in the room. Lovely to have you here, Mum and Dad. So born in 1963, 30th of March, and went through school. I was a bit like you, Katrina. We were talking about this yesterday. I was a bit of a bookworm. Was always reading. I think it was my junior cert year when I turned into a bit of a hippie. And I think that was the first time I ever remember having to think about the spelling of a particular word because I'd sort of just given up the ghost on reading. But I was a sort of prolific reader. I did all the stuff, the Cub Scouts and the Scouts and all that type of stuff, and had an idyllic upbringing with Mum and Dad. Dad was on the show the other day. Dad, we just realised, by the way, you're 82 and it was the 82nd show. We didn't pick that up on the day, so there you go, the universe conspiring. Anyway, we spent all of our summers down in Wexford, an idyllic upbringing. Mum would drag us down there. We had a ball, a bit like you talking about going to the hospital yesterday, Katrina, and your experience was very different to your mother's. My poor mother had to put up with 5 of us in a caravan for years, then a mobile home for years, then we got the bit of a Tigeen. But we had a beautiful upbringing. My memory was we'd leave the actual capital. I love that. Thanks for bringing that in, Kat. We'd leave the actual capital once school finished, and we wouldn't come back till the end of the summer. So I never really experienced a summer in the city. And so childhood was great, sort of idyllic. And the 4 others plus me, I'm the second eldest, Irish twins. Carol is 11 months older than me. And I think Carol might be here in the cafe today, so you're welcome, Carol. Good to see you. Hey, Carol. And so yeah, life was good. Got to 5th year and realised, because I was having such a good time, like, went to see the Pope in Galway in '79. That was 5th year. And that was sort of transformational for me. That brought me on a particular spiritual, or perhaps a Christian Catholic route for years. I was in church folk groups thereafter for donkey's years. But in 5th year, I realised I hadn't actually thought about what I wanted to do, because I was having such a good time in school. And fellas around me were saying, oh, they're going to be doctors and solicitors and engineers and electricians and whatever. And I really hadn't thought of the Leaving Cert. I had stayed back a year in 6th class because I think I was very young. I think Mum kicked me out of the house very young to get to school. And so I had to stay back in 6th class for a year. So I sort of lost one cohort of friends. They moved on. And then 6th year came and I thought I better set my sights on something for Leaving Cert. I know, I'd be a school teacher. Sure, they got the life of Riley, right? Long holidays and short hours. So that's what I went for. And I would have been a school teacher, except I didn't get the honour in Irish, and you needed to get the honour in Irish to get into St. Pat's Training College. So I decided I'd get a job for the year, and I went to work with the DA for that summer. He was a sales manager or representative for Green Isle Frozen Foods at the time, and he brought me into, he said, I'll meet you in the city, in town. The town was Dublin City. So I'll meet you in town on, say, Wednesday. And I went in and I arrived in, went for an interview in BHS, British Home Stores, that morning for a job as a kitchen porter, the illustrious role as a kitchen porter, and left there. And basically I had a job offer when I was leaving. They said, yeah, you can start on Monday. And it was going to be £60 a week. And I left there, and that was on O'Connell Street in Dublin, walked straight across the street into Cleary's department store, opened the lift to the 3rd floor, and the dad was to meet me there because he was doing a sales call in that restaurant. So I'm sitting there having my cup of tea, look at the lift doors, and the doors open, and the dad arrives in, and he scoots off. He didn't see me in the restaurant. He scoots off and he goes into the back area, like into the kitchens. And so anyway, I went up to the manager and I said, that's my dad, and he said, oh, you should come on in, whisked me in. And I met a man called Stephen Halpin, who dad was supplying. Stephen Halpin owns the franchise. And Stephen says, what are you doing, big man? What are you doing, young man? I just told him, Leaving Cert, studying Irish for a year because I wanted to be a teacher, and I've just got a job in BHS kitchen porter. He says, you don't want to be a kitchen porter, young man. He says, you want to be a trainee manager. Come in here next Monday and I'll start you £40 a week, right? 50% or a third reduction, right? Just off the bat. So I thought to myself, hang on a sec, kitchen porter sounds like work. Training manager sounds like fun, right? So I decided to go with the training manager and started there on the Monday. And it was to be a part-time thing if I got to college. It was full-time until I went to college, was the way he described it. And I think 6 weeks later, he said to me, listen, I'm expanding and you've got a way with people. And he said, so I think there's a career in this for you if you want to stay. And I was thinking, go back to school, give me £40 a week or stay working. So I decided to stay working. And here we are today. I better stop there and let you in, Kat.
No, that's brilliant. No, and it's, you know what, it's lovely listening to you talk about your childhood and your family, because it's obvious from meeting your family members this week and throughout the show that you're all very close, and it just comes through. You very much had a happy childhood, and it's lovely. What you were saying about school, and it's so hard when you're that age, if you don't have a vocation, it's very hard to know at that age what you want to do. So, and I always believe the career finds you. That's what I found. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and you find your way to what you're meant to do, I think. So what happened then after you jumped onto the trainee role?
Yeah, thanks for that, Kat. I think you're right. Your career does find you. I genuinely believe the universe had different plans for me. And so I stayed with that company for 8 years. I grew from training manager to manager. We opened a restaurant in the Ilex Centre. Some people remember the Ilex Centre in Dublin, opened a restaurant there called Hallin's, or rather they did, and I was managing it. And then I got sort of fed up, and I've always been more interested in learning than I have been money, which is sort of interesting, and it's cost me dearly over the years, but it's just the way I've been wired. So I remember deciding I needed to get out of this place. It was like a glass ceiling. It was a small business and it wasn't growing, and so there was a handful of us, chomped at the bit. And so I went for several interviews one summer in '88 and ended up with 2 job offers. One was a training manager in Beauties in Grafton Street, and the other was a full manager's role with more money attached to it and some profit share in Blackrock Shopping Centre. And again, I went for the lesser money with the opportunity to grow and learn. Had a few ups and downs, of course, through that. It wasn't all plain sailing, but I became general manager in Beaulies in Grafton Street in 1991. I was 28, and that was big. That was a big deal. 200 staff. There was, I think, the senior management team was 20 odd people, and I was this, fresh-faced young fella, sort of leading the charge. But tremendous learning experience, and of course, I've got such love for that brand and for that iconic building. So when it closed down recently, I offered to go back and help them reopen, and did, and worked for a Christmas there a couple of Christmases ago. Nearly killed me because I'd forgotten I was 25 years older. But it was fun and a huge part of my learning. So I was Beaulies in Grafton Street, became franchise manager for the Beaulies brand then, which was basically I was the brand policeman. Beaulies had started to open franchises around, oh, thank you, Eamon. Yeah, there's Beaulies in Grafton Street. For those of you that know it, you'll love it. And for those of you that haven't yet been there, well, it's closed now, and I don't know whether it will reopen. But just an iconic premises and an iconic brand and business. So I was blessed to carry the torch there for 4 years, 91 to 95. 95 to 98, I became the franchise manager for the brand. Then I moved to Limerick and took on the Beaulies Cafe in Cruiser Street in Limerick. Then, Gaming, you've got an image of that. Some of you might remember that. And some people say they remember it fondly. And I remember it fondly largely, except it nearly killed us because the perfect storm basically took us out at the knees. And I'll talk to you about that if you wish me to, Katrina.
Oh, please. I've heard this story, and it never fails to have an impact, so anyone here who doesn't know that story, they need to, it's amazing how so many events can happen in such a short space of time and just take the feet from under you. So please do tell us.
Yeah, thanks, Kat, and thanks, Emma, for those images. So I always say we can only connect the dots backwards, which is a little unfortunate, right? But if we connect the dots backwards, nobody steps into business for themselves to fail. Everybody steps into business believing it'll work, and we did that, and we moved to Limerick, Aidan and myself, Sean and Stephen at the time. We've since had a third. We've got 3 adult children. Sean is now 34, Steve's 27, and Jenna's 18. And so when we moved to Limerick, we took on that cafe in Cruiser Street, and we made a really good go of it, dare I say it. Now, I was hugely experienced in the industry at that stage, hugely experienced in the Beaulies brand, so we produced a very, very credible Beaulies experience in Cruiser Street in Limerick, and we were rewarded for such. Business was great. But then a perfect storm began to form, and we didn't even see it coming. First thing that happened was, around the turn of the century, Beaulies, for those that will remember, was famous for really great coffee, real tea leaves, right? Remember that? Brown bread, real butter, rashers, sausages, fried eggs, right? Nothing healthy about it, but delicious stuff, okay? And of course, that was part of its charm. But around the turn of the century, the marketplace began to shift away. I always blame the millennials for this. Began to shift away to, they wanted sort of sexier fare. They wanted wraps and paninis and lattes and cappuccinos. And Beaulies wasn't known for that. So because Beaulies wasn't known for it, people voted with their feet. And so our business was growing really nicely to around the turn of the century. Then it just began a noticeable decline. Noticeable. Well, it wasn't too much to worry about. Second thing that happened, however, was in the perfect storm, was while that was ongoing, foot and mouth disease hit the island of Ireland. Some of you will remember that. And basically that's a bovine disease, and it's very contagious. So the government asked people, not a bit like now, to lock down your farmsteads and don't go into the cities or you'll spread it. So they didn't come into the cities. And of course our business dropped 20% overnight because there was no footfall in the city streets. So that was the second problem, declining market and then dropped 20%. Third thing that happened, which just as we were coming out of foot and mouth disease about 6 months later, was 9/11. Kathy Merrow's in the cafe. Kathy, good to see you. But 9/11 struck, and you ask, how could a tragedy in New York City affect Limerick City? And the answer to that is Shannon Airport. Shannon Airport. So the Americans stopped flying immediately, and they never came back into Shannon Airport, which was the lifeblood of the Midwest. So our business stayed flat. Okay, so growing nicely, began a slow decline, dropped 20%. And then stayed flat for over a year. That was very difficult. And then in 2002, when we thought there was light at the end of the tunnel, we got this rent increase. I refer to it in my book as the fecking Celtic Tiger, right? Fecking Celtic Tiger was this madness that took over the country and basically told us all that the value of our properties was just going up and up and up and up and up. And the effect that had on our business was the landlord said, well, my business was worth this amount yesterday. It's worth this amount more today. You need to pay me more rent. And our rent, when you hear this, our rent for a coffee shop, right, in Ireland's third city, which is Limerick, in a pedestrian street, went up to €1,000 a day. €1,000 a day in 2002, selling cups of coffee and rasher sandwiches that nobody wanted anymore. Right, so that effectively put us out of business. That crystallized in 2003. So we knew the business had failed in 2003, but it took us another almost 2 years to get out. So it failed in 2003 and just kept digging the financial hole until 2005. We finally closed the door on the 4th of March.
That must have been just heart-wrenching. And how long did it take you to, I suppose recover is the word I need, but like, what did you do in the immediate aftermath? Like, how do you bounce back from that?
I suppose we'll recover yet.
Yeah.
It'll happen. It's a really good question, Katrina. And, you know, I did think about possibly going to get a job, truthfully, that summer in 2005. I thought maybe I was going to have to go get a real job. And, but what has become Carambola started in that time frame, and I might just tell you that story if I may. And it's to do with my business card. At the game, and you might have a slide with my business card on it. So I knew the cafe was failing. Once we got the rent review in 2002, which crystallized in 2003, I knew it was game over. So we rebranded from Bewley's to Cruises Coffee Company to try and save the day, try and trade our way out of the difficulties. We gave Bewley's back their name, and therefore we didn't have to pay a franchise fee. So we saved about 50 grand a year, but at €1,000 a day rent, all that did was keep us alive for 50 more days in a year. I then decided that I needed to expand. So we went to Dublin, myself and my brother Donal, whom you met the other day, and a friend, Richard Stiles, and we set up the kiosks on the Liffey Boardwalk in Dublin. Some of you will know those coffee kiosks on the Liffey Boardwalk in Dublin. We took those over and we traded as Cruises Coffee Company there. And because I was in Limerick and my expanding business was, and we got the name Cruises from Cruises Street, by the way, which is where our cafe was in Limerick. Because I was up and down regularly, and I don't like driving, never have, I was regularly on the train. So one morning on the train from Limerick to Dublin to visit the coffee kiosks on the boardwalk, I bumped into this guy. Never met him before. I was sitting facing forward. He was sitting by the window facing forward. We were working away doing our thing. This is 2003. And towards the end of the conference, towards the end of the trip, because I never invite comments early on the trip in case the person's a talker, right? But towards the end, when I was finished my work, 20 minutes from Dublin, I sort of said, how's it going? Chat, chat, chat. And we swapped business cards as you do. And my business card was a Cruises Coffee Company card. But on it, you'll see here, it's got that strap line. See in the little speech bubble, how can I help? So your man says to me, he says, Colm O'Brien, have your number there. He says, it says, and it was a Cruises Coffee Company card, so you're in the food game. He says, what does how can I help me? And I said, that's my offer to the universe. If I can be of any help, if you think I can be of any help, pick up the phone. If I can help you, I will. If I can't, you know, I might find somebody who can. Simple as. And he says to me, that's really interesting. Pocketed my business card and never rang me, right? And I never thought about it. It's just one of those tiny bumps in the universe, right? But 3 months later, his boss rang me and said, I have your card. Now, wait to hear this, Kat. He says, I have your card. You met a guy on the train. I'm thinking, did I? He says, you met a guy on the train, right? Gave him your card. Says, you're in the food game. Says, how can I help? Your man came back to Limerick that evening, gave me your card. And he says, if you're ever doing anything in food, give this guy O'Brien a call. He's an interesting character. And he says, we are about to do something in food, but the guy that you met has actually left our organization. So it's just that tiny moment in time, right? So he says to me, the guy says to me, I'm ringing you because, he says, I'm wondering, are you interested in doing a pilot project for healthy school lunches in Limerick? And I'm thinking, am I what? My business is dying. Of course I am. Of course, I didn't say that. I was very cool on the phones. Yeah, we could probably explore something like that. Come on down, come on down, come on down. So he comes down for a meeting. We have a meeting, right? And we win the tender. Win the tender. I learned 2 years later, nobody else tendered. It wasn't that we were even very good, right? We won the tender and we supplied our first children school lunches in last semester, 2005. Like 2003. And we supplied 27 children on our first day. And that came from me having my card with my strap line on it, which, by the way, is on every business card I've ever had since and will be to the day I die. And I recommend you all put on your business cards, and there's no franchise fee attached. Just put it on. How can I help, right? And I met the man on the train. And if you wouldn't mind, Eamon, I think you have a picture of the man on the train. Never met him again for years until I met him at a black tie gala ball. Ta-da! And that there is Gary O'Brien, another O'Brien, double O'Brien, right? Gary O'Brien. And he's the man on the train. And he was working for a social inclusion group called Paul Partnership at the time in Limerick City. That's in that tiny time frame that our paths crossed. He passed my card. The rest, as they say, is history. 27 lunches day one. And when we shut the door on the 12th of March, we supplied 30,000 lunches in one day. So was that a good meeting? As they say in Limerick, one of my favorite Limerickisms, you can chalk it down, a great meeting.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And you have, because I think Eamon has a picture of the vans, you have your standards then just came through the whole way through. Like you told me a few stories about Carambola and the lengths that you go to, and everybody who works for you has the same standards, you know, and the goal is where your book title came from. Do you want to tell us about that a little bit? I think you know the story I'm talking about. The van, was it Donegal?
Oh yeah, I do, yeah. So Feeding Johnny is the name of the book, and it comes from that. So that's our fleet at rest there last year. So, you know, we didn't need a fleet like that to feed 27 children. So you can see how the thing has grown. We had 120 people working at least up to the time we finished. So it's all about teamwork for me. I've always said I love business and I hate work. I love business and I hate work. And the difference for me is I work very hard. For any of you in the room that would know me, I work very hard. But I only work very hard at stuff that interests me and stuff that I believe has leverageability attached to it, okay? So that I can do the work once and that perhaps there might be a reward ongoing. So making sandwiches for me was work. You know, building a business where sandwiches were made was very different, if that makes sense. So the man on the train moment, let me just finish on that, by the way. There is one for everybody in the audience. That's the great news, right? There is a man on the train moment out there. I promise you, guarantee it. But two criteria must apply. Number one, you must be out there doing your thing. He was never going to knock on my window in Duradoyle and say, I've got this great idea that will change your life. Ever. Not going to happen. You must be out there doing your thing. That's the first thing. If you're not out there doing your thing, and I suppose I'm preaching to the choir because you're all out here doing your thing, right? Happy days. Second thing, must happen. You must be out there to be of service first. My business was dying. My card said, how can I help? Not will you buy from me? Back to Tommy O'Brien, stop selling, start serving. Stop selling, start serving. And that's the only reason we're having this chat, because that's the only reason my card was worthy enough to be given to his boss. Does that make sense? Yeah, please, I hope it does. That's huge, absolutely huge. Out there doing your thing and out there to be of service first. So Carambola, 27 lunches, up to 30,000 lunches ever since. And Feeding Johnny came from this. I was dyed in the wool in customer service. Dad will tell us about that. The man I went working for, that man, Stephen Helpin, the big burly man, customer service was his thing. We carried the customer's tray in a self-service environment. That set us apart from all the competition. So simple, we carried the customer's tray, and but it set us apart. And where was I going with that? Forgive me now after I lose my own train of thought.
The van and Feeding Johnny.
Feeding Johnny. Thank you. Okay. So customer service is where it's at. Oh yeah, there's a copy of the book. That's a lovely picture. So that's the book, and it was published and launched in Katrina's O'Mahony's bookshop in 2015. And that's when Katrina and I started working together. That picture, by the way, is lovely in every sense, but it's where my book was taken by Paddy O'Connor. Remember we met Paddy O'Connor and Roisin Kelly from Cara Projects in Kenya? They took my book to Kenya, and that's one of the ladies that works in their orphanage there. Isn't that just gorgeous? But anyway, the title of the book, Feeding Johnny, comes from the fact that we must feed Johnny. One of the disciplines, the great disciplines that Carambola imposed on me and therefore the team, is that Johnny must be fed. We are feeding school children. It is not remotely acceptable that we would have an excuse to not turn up. I hope that makes sense to you. If we were selling maths books and the van got a flat tire, right, we could ring the school principal and say we'll be there tomorrow. Selling school lunches, we cannot, okay? And so the story I think that you're alluding to, Kat, is where one morning very early, it was up heading to Donegal, up in Mayo, as it happens, and the van broke down. So we had this van driver out in the wilds of Mayo chugging along with hundreds, maybe thousands of lunches. in the back of his van, right? And the van broke down and he didn't know what to do. So he rang, this is the middle of the night. This is like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. He rang back to headquarters and there was a flurry of phone calls, including to the guards in Ballina in County Mayo. And the guards said, oh, we've got this truck recovery service. So they sent the truck recovery service out to pick up our van. And where does our van driver ask him to take? He didn't ask him to take him to the garage to fix the van. He asked the truck recovery to take him to all of his schools so he could do his deliveries. And he did all his deliveries first before the van got fixed, which is, and I knew nothing about that. That's nothing to do with me except the ethos. I knew nothing about that till after it happened and after Johnny got fed.
But it comes from the top down, in any organization, it does, and it comes from the top down, and they learn that from you, and it's, they see how you behave and your team, well, they should, and most do, they'll behave accordingly, That's what I find anyway. So that brought you to Colm O'Brien Motivation. So do you want to bring us through those few years to where we got to what we're at today?
Yes, thanks, Kat. Thanks, Kat. Yeah, so I suppose I'm hoping I'm giving you a picture of what the formation of where I am today in my life. And thank you all for being here and sharing this journey with me. So the book was written with no plan except to write a book. Somehow I always imagined there was a Hemingway in me, right? And I could see myself with a cardigan. And I did imagine a sort of an Indian Ocean breeze wafting through, a Whittle cottage or whatever it is, or a hut. But anyway, that didn't happen. But look, I was turning 50 and somebody said, there's a book writing course you should go on. So I went to a book writing course for a half a day, and I learned there how to structure the writing of a book. And so 7 months later, I had Feeding Johnny written, and I got an introduction to Liberties Press. They took it on and published it, and that's where you and our paths crossed officially for the first time, Kat. But I wrote the book truthfully as just a bucket list thing. Wouldn't it be nice to have a book with my name on it? It would. What happened was, and this surprised me, people read it. Right? People actually read it, other than my ma, right, and my dad. But people read it, and I began to get phone calls and people saying, "Come here, I'm going through that in my business journey. Would you talk to me about it?" So okay, I will. And so that dragged me, if you like, into this whole idea of understanding that I actually had something to offer in terms of business mentorship. So I didn't know that I had. I knew that I could do it for myself. I didn't know that I could use that experience to help other people. So it turns out I can. And so Colm O'Brien Motivation then was formed, and Katrina was part of that team at the get-go. And we formed Colm O'Brien Motivation in 2016, had our first events. We had 2 events in that year. Just, I suppose, me stepping out and saying, here I am, this is what I do. And Katrina has kept the wheels on that train ever since. And it was a slow burn, not least of which was Carambola was very busy. It was a huge amount of time associated with that. So I was only sort of fitting people in my spare time. I also found one-on-one work quite challenging for a number of different reasons. We're back to work, not business. We're back to no leverageability in one-on-one work. And so I realized I needed to get into group work. So if I was going to spend an hour in front of somebody, let me spend an hour in front of a half dozen people. And we can it does 2 things. There's obviously a greater return for my hour of effort, clearly. But on top of that, there's the magic, as Shelley would call it, the hive mind. It's not just me. I'm not the resident expert in the room. We put our stuff on the table, and something can come from that. And there we are. Yeah, thanks indeed, Eamon. So this photograph was taken last June in the Lakeside Hotel here across the river in Ballina, and it was where 50 people graciously came for a day, and it was called Think and Act Rich, and the ACT was an acronym for Assets, Cash and Time. Think and ACT Rich. And it wasn't about getting wealthy per se. It was about understanding the dynamics of wealth so that you could be free. Somebody wants to get rich, happy days, let them off. But it's more about being wealthy enough to be free. And to do that, we need an income source that isn't derived from our personal physical effort. So that's where assets come in. We need assets, we need cash, and we need time if we're to be truly free, in my opinion. And that's what that event was about. And Katrina, of course, was there, and Princess Shelley was there actually as a participant, and Eamon was there as part of the team, and Noelle was there. Noelle Cran was there as part of the team. She's gone on to do wonderful things ever since. And so that was me stepping out, and I pulled that event together to specifically say, lads, I'm still here, but I'm changing my business model. I'm only going to do group work from here on. And that's where WIG-WAM came from. And I'm not sure, Eamon, if we have a WIG-WAM. Oh, we do. There you go. There you go. And I'll finish on this, Kat, and go back to you if you don't mind. Sorry. But so you will all know that the Coffee at 11 show has been sponsored by WIG-WAM.ie. And that's where Shelley and I go to work. We're at 6:45 Zooms every day of the week, working with groups. And we're taking the funds from that work. We're not paying ourselves. We're investing it into what has become the Coffee at 11 show, because it takes work and effort. So that's why we decided, since we needed a sponsor, we might as well sponsor it ourselves, get some brand leverage from it. So thank you for that, Eamon.
You're clearly the dream team, yourself and Shelley. I love it. At what point did TEDx come into the frame then? Because you did Janie is here today, I think. Yeah, I see you there. Hi, Janie. So what point did the TEDx talk happen?
Forgive me, I probably skipped over a slide there, Eamon, did I?
That's quite all right.
Yeah, thank you for that. Never work with animals, children, or former hosts. All right, so this is my TEDx journey, and the lovely Janie Lazar is in the room today. Janie, it's a pleasure. Namaste. It's just, I was so blessed. This time last year was the application season for TEDx in Dunleary, and I didn't know Janie at the time. So I decided, I live by the maxim, by the way, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's a Wayne Gretzkyism. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I said, the worst thing that I can do here is not throw my hat in the ring. Because if I don't throw my hat in the ring, I ain't speaking on a TEDx red dot. If I do throw my hat in the ring, what's the worst they can tell me is no. And if they tell me no, do you know what I'll do? I go back next year, and the following year, and the following year, and the following year, and the following year. But I was blessed that I got chosen out of the crowd, and I was one of 9 adult speakers on that day, with a whole host of young children, younger speakers, I should say, change makers, young change makers that were on earlier in the day. Lovely journey, terribly challenging, I'll be honest, right? Janie, I'm sure you know this, very difficult to even this, because we can sort of riff off each other back and forth. In a TEDx environment, it's a very different forum, and very different dynamic. And the talk was Stephen's story. Basically, it was a story about bullying, and it was the story of my son Stephen, who was bullied through school and thankfully came out the far side, the better for it, dare I say. And so that was my TEDx journey. Yeah, so Feeding Johnny led to business mentoring, which led to public speaking, which led to TEDx, which has probably led us to here. I started the Coffee with Colm blog series several years ago, because I had every Sunday morning, and it sort of built a consistent audience of people who were interested in what I was waffling on about. I always say I think out loud, and my inspiration for that would come from being in the marketplace, out in the marketplace, doing my thing every day, and stumbling across somebody, have a conversation with somebody, they'd spark an idea, I'd say, oh, that's interesting. I'd write a piece, record a video, take the audio as a podcast, and it would go out every Sunday. And there was a consistency to that. Consistency, hugely important, folks. Whatever you decide to do, think about it before you say yes. Because if you say yes, you're going to do it every day. Wish you well, right? Wish you well. In my opinion, I'm too lazy for that. Okay, once a week is enough, right? So I'm very careful that I protect my own time when I'm setting stuff up. Okay, and I think into the future and say, what's this going to look like if this thing actually works? Coffee with Colm began to work, but it was a weekly commitment. And when lockdown happened, and this probably brings us to where we are today, when lockdown happened, all of a sudden I thought, shoot, I'm stuck now, right? How is Coffee with Colm going to go out on Sunday? Because what am I going to do? I'm going to go live and say, well, listen, wait till I tell you what I didn't learn this week while I was in lockdown, right? And that's exactly why I decided to reach out to Alan Andrews on the 18th of March and say, listen, would you come in for a cup of coffee? We'll invite a few friends in for to Earwig. And he did. And here we are 84 shows later. And thank you to all of you for being a part of that journey. It's just been a privilege.
Privilege for all of us to be on that journey with you, though, and I am going to miss it. I am going to miss it next week. I think everybody here is the same, but sure, look, season 2. I think we're all ready for a season 2 eventually. So after COVID, I know you're going to relax next week, but beyond that, what, after the restrictions eventually lift, what do you see in your future?
Yeah, thank you, Kat. And I'm going to miss it too. Let's be honest, I'm going to miss it. We all need a break. Everything has a season and it's got to stop and regenerate. The Coffee at 11 show. Here's the lovely team. Look at that. Bula bus, ladies and gentlemen. There's where the magic happens. That's it. This was hilarious. This is for Kat's show yesterday, right? And it looks like we all got the wear a blue shirt memo. Look at that. There's teamwork at its best. That's just gorgeous. But come here, it's been a joy. What started out as just an idea, and it was just me thinking, sure, this will be grand, turned into an enormous amount of work. Joyful work, but an enormous amount of work. So the three happened to sniff around and start saying, okay, well, actually, now that you asked that, would you do this? Would you do that? Would you do the other? Would you do the other? Right? And that's how this beautiful team has formed. And it's a beautiful team, very complimentary. Yeah, thank you, Bridget. Thank you for that. It's, hats off, folks. It could have been done without you. It would not be anywhere near the same without you. And that goes for this lovely audience that has formed around the Coffee at 11 show. It's been a beautiful privilege to think out loud with you and have beautiful people come in and just share stuff. Like, how cool is that? We were so blessed during lockdown. So on that basis, it must stop. It must stop. I did make the commitment day one. I'll do this, big brave lad, but I'll do this every day while COVID restrictions are in place, thinking it'll be 3 weeks, right? And then realized, hang on a second, I'm after hanging myself with my tongue, right? I said, okay, we've got to figure this out. Team came around and that made it somewhat easier. Beautiful people, beautiful conversations, and they're there forever, for posterity. It's just wonderful, like, so blessed. Season 2 has to happen because this is too good. And this has nothing to do with me as the host. It's hats off to the team, including everybody here in the cafe today and all those people that have watched this. There's something magic happened and we can't ignore that, and it would be sinful to just stop it because we don't have to just stop it. We have to temper it because we also got jobs to contend with and businesses to run. So season 2 will happen some point late September, and we kick it off somehow. And we will probably do it on a Friday only, do a live on a Friday only, because we just don't have the time to do it. But at least season 2 will happen. I'll put that out there. The other thing that I want to just go public with at this moment is that we had planned to do a live event on Saturday the 25th of July to sort of celebrate season 1, get people together. We're not going to do that now. It's too risky. It's too risky. Too difficult to ask people to put themselves in harm's way, even though the intention would be right. Instead, and I'm going to make this public now, so I'm going to hang myself with this one, we're going to write the book. We're going to write the book of season 1, right? We're going to create a book. We'll ask everybody, all the guests who've been participating in it, there'll be 85 stories to be told in that book. Is that okay? Yeah, so long as everybody agrees. Up to 85 stories will be told in that book, and it'll be a timeless reminder of the journey we spent together. And what we do is we get that book, we create it, and then we'll have a book launch in O'Mahony's. How's that, right? And we'll do that to launch season 2. And where's Roisin Meany? We'll do that just in time for Christmas, right? For the Christmas season. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's always good. It's that time of year. You know what I'm saying? Like,
don't be piggybacking on her plans there now. So I'm going to go to Q&A in a minute with Princess Shelley, but before I do so, what else are you bringing from COVID? Because you've already mentioned some things.
Forgive me for not answering your question. I'm sorry, I went off on one. All right, I'm bringing longer hair. Right, this is bringing me back 40 years. My mother is throwing her eyes up to heaven there, and just see it. She remembers my dad used to say to me, "You're not going for a haircut. You're going to get a quote." It was that long, but anyway, it was fun. But the hair is grown. I'm taking longer hair with me. I'm taking really good friendships with me. I'm taking precious memories with me from COVID. I'm taking the fact that I was too busy before COVID with me. I'm taking the fact that I've always hated driving, and that's, I'm so happy with Zoom these days. Like, I'm going to Zoom as much as I can. I'd sooner Zoom than vroom, right? And I just, driving just does nothing for me. I had 2 meetings that were, actually one meeting in Dublin some weeks back, and it took me 2.5 hours to drive up there for an 1.5 hour meeting, 2.5 hours to get back. And that would have been done in 45 minutes on Zoom. So I'm taking the fact that the world has been trained by COVID that Zoom is a very effective way to do business. Is it as effective as face-to-face, belly-to-belly? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. It doesn't matter what I think because I'm 57. It's what the 27-year-olds think, because this is setting them up for the future, right? This is setting them up for the future. They don't know belly-to-belly stuff. So I'm very excited about what COVID has brought into my life and what I'm going to take with me. I'm nervous though. I'm also nervous. I'm feeling for people. Went over to the Lakeside yesterday, genuinely, the Lakeside Hotel, genuinely to see could we actually get this event to happen on the 25th. We decided not to use Alan's place simply because he's got an adult-only policy. We wanted people who wanted to bring children to go there. So we were respecting that. When I went to the Lakeside yesterday, they started talking to me about the fact that the restrictions were unlikely to be lifted. And it was the first time I heard it because I don't watch the news and I don't read the newspaper. Dad will confirm that to you, right? Haven't done for 25 years. And so when I heard that, I was really disappointed. Then I got sad because I was thinking so many people's livelihoods are on the floor at this moment in time. And that is a challenge. And at some point, it'll become critical. And that's the part that I'm hoping we can somehow resolve sooner rather than later. And we just trust in the universe, and hopefully, so long as we get through it alive and well, the rest we can fix. As somebody said years ago, if your problems are only financial, you don't have problems. That said, it's easy to say if you're not on the floor. And so I'm feeling for everybody. Looking forward to a time post-COVID for sure.
Yeah, I think we all are. Before I pop to Princess Shelley, I wonder if I can put Carol on the spot. Carol, would you like to come in and say something to your brother?
Eamon, get ready with the eject button here.
Now, you might need to unmute yourself, Carol.
Colm, how are you?
How are you, Carol?
I just needed to correct you. It's 10 and a half months. It's not 11.
And can you see what I'm dealing with, ladies and gentlemen? Can you see what I'm dealing with?
Now you have the details. No, well done, Colm. We haven't been in for many of the coffees at 11 because it's 6 p.m. here in Perth, Western Australia. So it's a bad time usually for us, but we made a point of coming in for you tonight and Dad the other day and growing you, obviously, and really enjoyed it. I would love to have been around for a lot more. I think it's a fantastic way to pass time during the COVID when everybody was, you and I had a conversation early on about social isolation, and we talked about how it was physical isolation, not social isolation, and really important to maintain contact. So well done, fantastic concept, and well done to all of you for making this happen.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. You're very good. Thank you. I love you for that, and I love you anyway. But no, thanks for coming in on that. It has been a blessing for us as well. The fact that all the people got something out of it, great. We're delighted. But it was our way of staying connected. You're absolutely right. We did speak about physical distancing rather than social distancing. And 6 p.m. in Australia, in Perth. Thank you for stepping out. I just mentioned the fact that Kathy Mera, who's actually beside you on my screen, is 6 a.m. in New Hampshire. But listen, Carol, she's not family, but she got up every morning to put herself out. But don't worry about it.
Colm, she cares more than I do.
Well, lads, this could descend very quickly. I think we better hand over to Princess Shelley to tell us what's happening in the cafe. Princess Shelley.
Just saying like.
Thanks for that, Carol. Thank you.
Love you, Carol.
And when Carol popped into the chat very early on in the conversation, when at the start when he was saying about the Irish twins, there was a few comments came in, and she said, Princess Shelley, just to let you know, there's actually 10 and a half months, and I was really looking forward to kind of challenging him on that. So thanks for that, Carol. Delighted that we got to hear it from yourself. Once again, there's only 2 shows, everybody, in Series 1 where I haven't prompted our cafe visitors to pop in comments. One of them was The Legend Behind the Legend, which is Tommy O'Brien, which is Colm's Pop. I didn't prompt anyone then because they flowed in. And this is the second show. I didn't pop in. Usually about 11:30, I say, good morning, thanks for joining us. Don't forget, pop the comments in. And if there's just a flurry, and I'm so sorry, I'm starting off with an apology. I'm not going to get to everybody. I'm also going to stick to the program. You know, I would often offer in my take on it, but I knew I would be getting a little bit emotional as series 1 draws to an end. And like when we entered series 1, I had this friend, this acquaintance, bordering friend of Colm O'Brien. And now as we come out of COVID, I have a business partner for WIG-WAM.ie peer support, and a very close and personal friend that I would rely and depend upon for all things, not just business related. So at that point, I'm going to click straight over to the comments, because otherwise the chin will be wobbling again. So lots and lots of great, really, really good comments here. Everybody's saying, well done team. I have literally about 12 or 15 comments there. We had a bumpy takeoff to today's show, and everybody were soaring high now amongst the clouds, and everybody congratulating the team. And thank you very much. It means a lot to us to get those lovely comments in. Also then, thank you very much for all your applause. It's great. So then the first thing then that came in was Carol with the 10.5 months. And we have a few people in the room actually who have the Irish twins thing. Kathy Mera was saying that her brother, Irish twins, my brother and sister, and my husband and his sister are 10 months born in the same year. So we have a few Irish twins, even if they're not in Ireland. So thanks for that, Kathy. You're nodding away. And Lucy Cunningham, who was also a guest on the show with Home Share, Lucy said, nice to know another Irish twin, Colm. My brother is 11 months older than me too. So, so yeah, I thought that was really good. In fact, I think at one stage, Carol actually said that she was following on with the Irish twins until she discovered what was causing it. So I thought that was funny when I read that. She continued with my 2 children being 11 months apart until I worked out what was causing it. There it is, Carol. So yeah, thanks for that. Noelle McAlinden, another previous guest on the show, said, I think you found the perfect vocation. Real learning is not defined by the school walls. Colm, that was when we were talking about you wanting to be a school teacher, and that you had kind of pivoted elsewhere thanks to the BHS and the Arnott's, and you were kind of taken off in another whirlwind. It's lifelong. It's no coincidence that your appetite for learning is infinite. And then in capitals, you are a teacher. So thank you for that, Noelle. Then there was a flurry of comments in about Bewley's. You were talking about Bewley's at that stage, Colm, and there was great childhood memories, and I loved Dee Keogh, thanks for being here, Dee, said, I loved Bewley's. It was a treat in town as a kid. And Roisin Meany, again, thanks for being here, Roisin, said, loved that Bewley's in Limerick, a great sense of style to it. Didn't know Colm at the time, but look forward to going in and spending time with friends. Isn't that lovely? So yeah, she says, Noelle says Bewley's is a special place. Loads there about Bewley's, and luckily, Colm, you can have a read through these, and I'm so sorry that I'm not going to get to everybody else. So Roisin says here, I'll have to go down because I'm trying to find, like I say, there must be over 100 comments. Do you know what I mean? Noelle said, you've served up an ongoing banquet to feed and nourish children. No one can learn on an empty stomach. You've surpassed the teaching context. Still learning, still nourishing, coffee with Colm, being of service, and still nourishing all of us learners. So yeah, so I loved that. What I'm actually looking for here, I've never had so many. Here it is. I loved this comment coming in. Roisin Meany, she's just written her 18th book, I think, Roisin, forgive me if I'm going from memory in the last few days from all the wonderful guests, and it's being launched there in October, November time, in time for Christmas, which was the little banter that was going on with the Coffee at 11 show book that will be out and available. But Roisin said, full disclosure here, you know, this is it, breaking news. When I got my copy of Feeding Johnny on the night of the launch, I didn't think it would be a book for me. I wasn't in business and didn't have any plans indeed to go into business. So I thought I'd skim through it and maybe leave it at that. But it was such a revelation. I was glued to every page. Well structured, well written, easy to read, so interesting. Really, it was Colm's story told in his trademark easy style. Nothing lectury about it at all. So isn't that amazing? Comment on that there, Colm, while I find here where I am.
Yeah, thank you, Roisin Meany. That means a lot. That's lovely. Thank you for that. Truthfully, I wrote it for me. Right, it had to be easy, no big words. Part of it, by the way, this is something that and in fairness to the publishers, they went with me. I wanted every section to be just in 2 pages. I didn't want any section to bleed into a third page. I hate getting caught in a book when because I'm usually busy and I'm sort of giving myself 15 minutes to read something. And if after 15 minutes I'm only halfway through a chapter, it just bugs the heck out of me. So I wrote the book in a way that literally every single 2 pages is just one part of the story. So you can read those 2 pages and close it. When you go the following day, you open it and read the next 2 pages. It's sort of ABC, to be honest, but it sort of worked. And Dad also, he brought it to one of his creative writing courses, if I'm not mistaken, Dad. You might want to comment on that. And I think your teacher also said had high praise for it as a book, which surprised the heck out of me. But it's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Isn't that great? Some testimonial from, and everybody, lots of lovely comments about the book. But like I say, from an author that's written and successful across the world nearly with 18 books, thanks for that comment. I'll almost finish up. Ger Lockery has said, my sister will always be grateful for the time you took out of your day, Colm, to help her with some fantastic advice she was in desperate need of with her cafe at the time. You're a really great man to know, and I'm so happy to know you. So thank you for that, Ger. I really like that. And then I wrap up, and again, I felt a swelling of emotion actually when I got this one in. Eamon said, among countless other qualities you have, dear pal, and that's the bit that kind of I went, oh, dear pal, I'm heartened and inspired by your deliberate shining of the spotlight in overcoming the bullying. This was about the TEDx thing. A topic dear to my heart too. And you were talking about the team you were surrounded by, and he encapsulated all of us. He said the privilege is ours and a few hearts, and that is for sure. So like I say, he's the book there, waving the book at his camera. I'm so sorry that I'm not getting to loads. There's some really, really, really nice ones there. Barbara Byrne, lovely to have you. Lisa Chalfa, look out for them, Colm, when you're going back over them. They're lovely there from Lisa as well, and loads more. So I'm just sorry I'm not getting to them. Eamon has confirmed that it's actually well over 100 comments at this stage. And thank you so much for being here. And it's back over to you, Katrina. Thank you.
Thank you, Princess Shelley. That's lovely.
I have to add my own little, if I may. I can't let this this morning slide without adding my own, and I promise to keep it very, very short. But it's amazing the difference even €1 can make. And we constantly talk about the little things are the big things. And like, if I just share a little story, back when things were particularly difficult and challenging for me, for some reason I was drawn into a second-hand bookstore, and it was all I could afford back in my, what I jokingly refer to as my fat, sick and broke days. And I was looking for maybe a couple of books for my kids, nice copies and what have you, and I couldn't find enough for each of them. So like, I'm sure I was drawn into the shop for some reason. And as you're walking through the shelves, all the books are kind of facing this way. And as I was walking out, I saw one book was turned that way. This one, right? And it was almost like, I kept meaning to buy this book, and back then I didn't have the 15, 16 euro to buy it. And I felt that it was like the universe was just throwing it at me. Here, take the thing for €1, take it. I brought it home, I gobbled it up, and the 2-page chapter format was such that I read through it in no time. And even back then with my mindset as it was, feeling a little bit intimidated by some of the extraordinary courage in it, I thought, okay, what would Colm O'Brien think if he was reading this? If I was my own client, what would I think? I was like, someday I'd love to have this man in my audience at a show. And I just went on and read the book, put that up there, and all I did was, thank you. That most incredible prayer. I said, thank you for taking the time and effort to write this. It made such a difference to me where I am in my life at the moment. Now, what I couldn't have expected, when you put it out there, expect the unexpected, expect everything. What I couldn't have known was that this man wrote back to me and invited me over to Carambola for coffee and a chat, showed me the whole place, knows everyone in there by name, of course. And we hit it off from then forward. And a dear, dear, dear friend, I'll share what he wrote on the page that day. We were talking about who knows where things will go, and we don't even know. And he actually, he dedicated it, he wrote to Eamon, even Johnny, here's to serendipity, yeah? So it's like, follow those breadcrumbs, and I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Period.
Thanks, David. Ooh, you nearly had me going too. So before we move on, I'm going to bring in, because we brought in Carol, but I think we need to bring in the man who taught Colm everything he knows, well, nearly everything he knows. Tommy and Doreen, would you like to pop in there?
Mum is a little bit weak, maybe say a few words of it.
Yeah, no, just I had a dose of shingles, a bit of pain, but I'm grand. I'll be all right. Anyway, very good show. We enjoyed it. And it was great getting talking to Carol as well. So anyway, best of luck. And that's me finished. Thank you.
Well, I was on the hot seat yesterday, and I didn't realise what way it went till I looked at it later on, maybe even yesterday. And I apologise to Katrina. I didn't see her show live because I was having I think I told you in my little email I had a medical issue. Also. And it was a great show, as Carol said there. It's a wonderful show. It's quite unique. It's scary at times, and said you expose yourself very much, but that's life too. And hopefully, and I'm sure this will happen, because as someone there said, you know, teaching is not necessarily up in front of a class of people. It's how we live our lives. I know people I've known, and I've learned so much from them just by observing. I mightn't even have told them, or even didn't even know them, and I learned so much from them. But just getting back to the book, and I won't go on anymore. Thanks for having me, by the way, and all of you out there. You see, I didn't see any of you yesterday, so when I still don't see, I only see 4 faces. I wish you all well in whatever field of activity and pursuit you're following. Wish you well. But just to complete, Colm said to me about the class I was doing, and I gave the teacher the book this week, you see, and she said, right, Tommy, I glanced through that. And the next week she came, I couldn't wait till she came in, and she put it on her desk, you see. And I said, I wonder will she say something? And she didn't say anything for a while, and anyway, things were quite a... Now, by the way, she says, you see this book? This book, he says, was written by Tommy's son, Colm. She says, this man is a writer, an author. She says, his presentation was fantastic. She says, I could not put it down. And she says, I was a school teacher all my life. I was an avid reader, so she was and still is. But she says it was so interesting, I could not put it down, because she says there was a story here 2 weeks, two leaves later, another story. Colm, well done, and well done to all of you. Wish you all every blessing. God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thanks, Dad.
Go on, Colm.
Thanks, Dad. Thank you, Mum. Get well soon, Mum, okay?
Thanks for popping in, Tommy and Doreen. It's lovely. It's just lovely to have family around on a day. When you're in the hot seat, it's lovely to have that support. So we have a little surprise for you all. One of our regulars, James, has been working away, going back through all the recordings, and he has created a lovely piece for us that he's going to read out in a moment. It covers, you know, things that we've all learned over 83 shows, unless he's going to pop in a little bit from today, but over 84 shows. Apparently it's 5,000 minutes over 17 weeks. So I'm just going to let James take over from here, and away you go, James, if you need to unmute yourself, do.
With grateful thanks to the rock, the monk, the princess, and of course, the host. So what did we do during a global pandemic? How did we cut it through COVID? What did this gathering of wisdom, of knowledge, of experience, of so many talents, of people worth meeting, explore together during this lockdown liberation? Well, let it be said, we did not waste this pandemic, this once-in-a-century opportunity. We gave ourselves permission to do whatever we wanted during COVID, and allowed it to fire us onto a better track as it challenged our dysfunctional relationship with uncertainty. We faced the problem like we have done for time immemorial. We put the kettle on, brought our cup to this virtual table, and took a breath, a deep, cleansing breath. We looked around and did the most human thing we ever do. We shared our stories. Stories of love and loss, birth and death, joy and sorrow, success and failure that actually turned out to be success delayed rather than success denied, turning the job from hell into wonderful new possibilities. It turns out we picked the right card, even when we think we picked the wrong one. We stayed busy, stayed in touch, stayed grounded, stayed at home, stayed in today. We did the next thing. We kept on keeping on in our own lane and led, followed, or got out of the way. We embraced our limitations, then reached for the stars. We made time to take time. We went back to basics. We did not panic. We listened to the news we needed to be informed and ignored the gossip designed to incite and panic. We held on to the humanity. We lived in the now, because all we have for certain is now. and gave ourselves permission not to have to do everything, but to do whatever we want. We learned to control the controllable, not to stress that which we could not control, because the only wrong way to do a day is to think that there is a right way. Nothing is the end of the world. At this time when we could not go out, we zoomed rather than zoomed around the world. All were welcome to the table, and new real friendships have now been made all around the globe, from all walks of life, of all faiths, beliefs, and none, but all seeking how to improve the life of even one fellow human being, just as a parent, partner, teacher, coach, mentor, or friend had helped us. Let us therefore resolve to be someone's compassionate leader, because the day of the dictator is gone, and all lives matter. We witnessed the capital of Ireland move from Dublin to Cork, and yes, even to Limerick, while New York is still our global capital. The green jersey was wrapped around us during this, and indeed all future staycations. We found the power to climb the highest mountains. We ran the wild Atlantic Way, and from Scattery Island to the Serengeti. We took that first stride, even when we could not see that first step. Took that leap of faith, not because we had to, but rather because we got to take that opportunity. We were shown the beauties and wonders of the world, but just as important, we saw those places where there are still life-threatening difficulties, challenges and problems, and where one person can, indeed does, make a difference. You cannot engage a 3-year-old through a phone, but nor can we live in a world where another 3-year-old has to scavenge on a rubbish tip to survive. There is money in poverty and religion, but we cannot ignore something we cannot unsee. That disconnection is the root of all disease. Every child has a gift, and our job is to find it. They will be undocumented no more. The future is that undiscovered country. So what do we want out of life? What sage advice and sense of connection and creative community was shared among us that we can pass on to others? Visualize where you want to be and make a plan to get there, because when you follow your dream, you cannot escape it. Never second guess a light bulb moment. Feel all the feelings, because feelings buried alive never die. Feel the best you can. Do the best you can. Nobody is perfect, but it is enough to be perfectly imperfect. The fact is that we're all ordinary, but it is what we do that makes us extraordinary. And the difference is just that little bit extra. Completely and utterly believe in yourself. Do it, focus, be grateful, and be on purpose. And on those days when it all seems too much, when we must pause to rest and regroup, we should hunker down like a hedgehog, immerse ourselves in nature, or even just borrow someone else's self-belief until we find our own once more. Be kind to yourself. There is no harm to press pause before we press send. Remember, good enough is often good enough. Be authentic, true to yourself, and treat others as you would wish to be treated. Treasure those stolen moments, pocket them. Remember, no is a full sentence, so just say yes. This present will pass, so look to the future. Turn up the music, turn it up, and remember that in order to land on your feet, you have to be up in the air twisting around. Wave goodbye to your inner critic and give yourself permission to let go. The trick will be to open a shutdown economy. But a small key can open big doors. Innovation is exploding because of COVID-19. Creativity is contagious, and so is compassion. COVID can go, but solidarity can stay, and perhaps we can then retain the best part of this slower pace of life. In the words of the great philosopher Winnie the Pooh, life is a journey to be experienced, not a problem to be solved. This is the start, and we will move forward from right here and right now. No chain will bind us. We shall be too dangerous to insure. We shall serve, not sell. Namaste.
James, thank you from everybody here. I made the mistake of looking at Princess Shelley at the start of that. My God. And you said that wasn't poetry. That's poetry. Colm, have you anything to say? Can you even talk?
I'm overwhelmed. Truly beautiful. Truly beautiful. James Finnegan, the Church of James Finnegan. We've all just attended the Church of James Finnegan, and we're coming back next week for more. James, my friend, that was just astounding. James reached out last week and he said, look, I've penned a piece. I've just been taking notes. And most of you, or some of you will know there, everything there was something one of our guests said on the show. And I've no idea how you took 84 disparate conversations and wove them together into a perfectly coherent piece. Oh, Roisin Meany, you know, astounding stuff. James Finnegan could not have asked for a nicer end to Series 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Colm. Thank you, James. I think we need to try and get that published, printed, published, bound, whatever happens. But yeah, it was beautiful. Thank you, James. So we still have one more show to go. It would be lovely if you can all make it back in. Tomorrow's show is also going to be pretty epic. We have Dr. Sinead Kane coming in. And this woman is amazing. So she's a qualified lawyer. She has 2 Guinness World Records, one for running 7 marathons across 7 continents in 7 days. She's visually impaired, so she's blind. So whatever about running the 7 marathons, but running the 7 marathons blind. So she's a keynote speaker on adversity. So her talk is going to be something fairly special. So it'd be lovely if you could make the time to come in and join us tomorrow, because I'm going to be here. I've taken the morning off work just to be here for the final show, series finale, my God. So I want to thank everybody here for coming in today. And thank you, Princess Shelley. Thank you, Eamon. Thank you for trusting me, Colm. Thank you for trusting me with your baby. Thank you to WIG-WAM.ie SME peer support. And before I break down completely, Colm O'Brien, namaste.
Namaste, namaste, Katrina, namaste, Eamon Smith, namaste, Michelle Barry, namaste, all of you for being part of this miraculous journey. And I think we killed COVID.